Tell us about your teams from the first year you came here up until the present.
That's going to be tough to do. 25 years. This is a picture of our first team. These are the guys that the entire program is built upon. Everybody's health stands on their shoulders. The uniqueness of this team was that since we'd never had a program at Highland Park before, most of these guys are coming out having never even seen a wrestling match, not even knowing that there was a wrestling mat. Some of them thought it was a square ring with ropes on it and wanted to know if they could wear capes and masks to wrestle in. We had two guys that were experienced wrestlers. Alex Zaki's right up here. He was one of our captains, and he actually was from New York and had wrestled for a few years there. Hadn't wrestled in a while when he came here, but he was one of our captains. And then Shane Whittington, and you can't see him very well because this is the original picture of our first team. Shane actually started his wrestling for the Carrollton Stars and came up through Newman Smith's program and moved to Highland Park as a junior when they didn't have a program. Then his senior year we started one, and he and Alex were our two captains. That team was 1-12. It's a pretty frustrating year for a lot of the kids because they really didn't grasp the concepts of the sport yet. But they did win their last duel of the year and against LD Bell, and they really are the foundation by which this program is established. They're the guys that everybody stands on their shoulders, and there were a number of kids here that showed a lot of courage in coming out. This next team, 1983-84, our captains were Brian Simmons and Todd Terry. These guys went from a team that started out their first year at 1-12 in duels, and they went 9-3 as a second-year program. We finished second in the district, and at that time it was a very large district, 16 teams in the district tournament, and these guys finished, I think it was fourth in the district their second year. We had our first two state qualifiers with this team. Penn Laird was a sophomore and qualified, and Brock Williams also qualified for state on this team as a heavyweight, and they were our first two state qualifiers. Really started out well in moving up. This was 84-85. This team was finished second in the district tournament. Again, it was a large district still at that time. We had our first all-state wrestler. George Hempel, who started as a sophomore in the first year, was an all-state wrestler. He took 6th place, and so this is the team that had its first all-state competitor on. 1985-86 was the fourth year of the program, and in 1986, I believe this was the first year that we were district champions in 1986, and we won it for 9 consecutive years after that. These guys that were freshmen in that first group are now senior leaders here, and our captains were Tim Ryan and Penn Laird. They were senior captains along with Patrick Smith and Holt Foster. Holt, and actually I think it was Holt and Tim were juniors that year, and Penn and Patrick were seniors. We had Tim Ryan was an all-state wrestler that year. Penn Laird also was an all-state wrestler that year, and it was the first time that we cracked the top 25 in the state, as well as being district champions. So that was, they had some real significant accomplishments in it that particular year. 1986-87, we won districts again. Our captains were Hope Foster and Tim Ryan became our first multiple all-state wrestler. He placed in the state as both a junior and a senior. By the way, he was also an all-district football player his junior year, and then chose to go straight wrestling after that, which kind of worried me a little bit because we don't like to see our wrestlers quit the football team. Sometimes it's not a very good sign. We're going to see signs of some other all-state wrestlers were Mark Foreman at 103 pounds, and Mark is going to end up becoming our first state champion the next year. Also wanted to point out, see if I can find him up here. Let's see, where is he? This young man right up here at the top, focus in on that if you want to, is Taylor Allday. And Taylor actually, after wrestling for the Highland Park program, graduated and went to college in Colorado, at Colorado State, helped start a wrestling club at Colorado State, and when he came back home, he came back and he coached the wrestling club, our youth wrestling club, for 13 seasons. And so he's kind of a great example of guys coming back and giving back something to the sport. So really appreciated him coming back and doing that. This team also were district champions, so we continue to win the district championships with this program. Next year is the first year that we break into the top 15 in the state. We also had our first state champion in 1986-87, Mark Foreman. Mark actually started wrestling when he went to St. Mark's, moved over here, I believe as an 8th or a 9th grader, and wrestled for the Scots for 4 years, and was a captain that year, and also, not just an all-state wrestler, but a state champion, and was the first kid to win a state championship for us. Let's see, who else did we have up here? I'm trying to remember if we had any other all-state wrestlers on this team. We actually had a kid that would, Ames Hutton was an all-state wrestler. Not this year though, it would be the following year. We had a young man right here, John Luker, that actually wrestled for us for a few years and then moved away to Austin and became an all-state wrestler, wrestling for one of the Austin high schools. These guys again were state champions, or were district champions. This is the year that 1988-89. And we had our captains were Taylor Higginbotham and Ames Hutton and Craig Woodcook. Ames was a junior, and Ames placed in state that year. We also had, let's see, it's going to be Taylor Allday's senior year. And to remember if we had any other state placers, Ames and one other one. Let's see if I can find them on here for you. Ames may have been the only one. I'd have to look that up. But these guys were regional champions, and Ames's dad also was a great contributor to the program, and put a lot of time in. And kids were district champions again with this year. In 1989-1990, our captains again were Ames Hutton, Matt Thompson, Judson Birch, and Andrew Higginbotham. And Ames became our second two-time. Or a third two-time state placer, but not after Mark Foreman and Tim Ryan. He won, took a 6th in state, I think 5th or 6th in state this year, and helped lead the team. And this was really a talented team. They didn't do as well in the state tournament as we were hoping, but this team is going to end up with a lot of kids on it that are going to win. That are going to be all-state wrestlers later on down the road as well. So we had a number of outstanding kids that ended up being 4-year letters from this team. Next group, 1990-91, Judson Birch and Andrew Higginbotham and Josh Jackson were the captains. Josh was a junior. Josh is going to be a state placer this year, and ended up being a two-time state placer and our second state champion. We won the districts with this team. Pretty heavy senior team, and a lot of really good freshmen and young kids on this team. In 1991-92, captains were Claudia Smith and Josh Jackson, and Claudia was the younger brother to Patrick Smith. Josh was a state champion this year, and Claudia was a state runner-up, and so we had a first year that we had more than one kid in the state finals individually, and these two guys made the state finals. This is the first team to crack the top 10 in the state. I think we finished 7th in the state this year, and we're on our way to beginning to develop a real championship type attitude. And these guys were also district champions and had a great season. This 93, I think it was 1993. This particular team captains were Brad Field and Billy Crane, along with Carson Hall, I think, and let's see who the other captain was. I think Peter may have been Peter Borland. I think were captains on this team. Again, we've got some brothers, some younger brothers coming up. Nathan Jackson, who was a younger brother to Josh Jackson, is coming up on this team. These guys, again, were district champions and had a number of kids qualify for the state tournament. Billy Crane was an all-state wrestler, as well as Carson Hall that year. Kids still kept up in the top 20 or so in the state tournament as a team. This one, actually, this particular poster has a little bit of a story to it. We didn't mean to. This was supposed to be kind of a biker type poster, Harley Davidson type guys with my like towards Harleys and so forth. But one of our parents thought that this would look more like gang type stuff, and so we actually pulled this poster from distribution this year because we didn't want to present the image of us being a bunch of gangsters or whatever. So this poster is kind of rare. There's not too many of them around. These kids were also district champions, and we had about three or four guys that were all-state wrestlers off of this team as well. In 1994-95, our captains were Will Schramme, Carson Hall, Nathan Jackson. Nathan was an all-state wrestler that year. Will Schramme was an all-state wrestler that year. Will took second, and Nathan took fourth. Also, Bobby Hale was a fifth-place finisher at state that year. This was a really outstanding team, and only lost one duel, if I remember. They only had one loss in duels that year, won districts, and finished in the finished fifth in state, which was our first top 5 finish as a team in the state tournament. This also was the first year, I believe, for the state duels, and maybe the second. I think this team may have been the first year for state duels, and we took fifth in the state duels, so we had a top 5 finish in both tournaments that year. The 1995-96 team was the shoot to win team. These guys actually had to get on one of our parents on this one because if I remember right, this would have been the 10th year that we would have won the district championship in a row. We were going for number 10, and one of our parents had a bunch of t-shirts printed up. Won't give you his name because I don't want anybody writing him nasty letters or whatever, but he had a bunch of t-shirts printed up that had a decade of dominance on it. When I saw him, I got a little upset with him because I said, you might have jinxed us, and sure enough, we lost the district championship to Skyline by 1 point. And so we took second in district that year. We did have some pretty outstanding kids on this team. Bobby Hill and Denham Schiff were all-state wrestlers. Bobby took third and Denham took fifth. They were also captains on the team. 1996-97, our captains were Devin Lonergan, Blake Harkey, and Dan Cooley, and they called themselves the Pin Doctors. It was kind of fortuitous because Devin Lonergan is now a doctor. He's a ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, training out in Stanford right now. Devin was one of the kids that has come back since he's graduated from high school. He wrestled at Stanford for a couple of years while he was going to school out there, and came back while he was going to medical school at Southwestern and helped coach our club along with my son Joey. Blake Harkey went to Swanee, and while he was at Swanee was a volunteer coach at a high school out in Swanee and coached for 4 years there, and now is teaching at Green Hill Academy. So these guys had a lot of kids that came back and put a lot into the program, and this team reclaimed the district championship and put us back in contention for winning districts every year. 1997-1998, captains were Adam Galloway, John Innendike, Mason Bishop, and Vince DeLeese. This is the team that won the first state championship for Highland Park in 1998. We won our state duels for the first time. Had a number of outstanding kids. Mason Bishop was a state champion. Owen Lonergan was a state placer. Let's see, who else did we have? We had, I think, 5 state placers on that team. They took third in the state tournament, and they took first in the state duels that year. 1999, with this program, this is the best program ever come out of the state of Texas. One of the guys on this team, who is now helping me coach, Mark Lamoureux, was a senior on this team, and he's now an assistant coach here at Highland Park. This team had 11 nationally ranked wrestlers on it out of 15 weight classes. They placed 9 kids in the state tournament, 6 in the finals, 3 state champions, including Anthony Schlegel, who's now playing professional football for the New York Jets. My son Joey was the state champion, and we had a little freshman by the name of Jake Francis. Josh is his little brother. Jake Francis, that was a state champion as a freshman, and it was the first time that Highland Park has had a freshman state champion, and the only time so far. Jake went on to become a 2-time All-State wrestler. This team won the UIL state tournament by 100 points, doubled the second place team's score, and set a national record for the largest margin in duels. With we beat our opponents in duels by an average of 64 points, and that record still stands today nationally, as far as I know. So this was just a phenomenal team, just loaded with talent. And the guys came back. By the way, also this 1990 team was the first UIL season. This was the first year that the UIL sponsored wrestling in 1999. And so they won the first UIL state championship along with the state duels. In 99-2000, this program was also state champions with the UIL and won the state tournament by about 40 points. They also were state dual champions, so they doubled up just like the previous team did in 1999. We did not have any state champions on this team. It's the first year and only year that I can remember that we've won a state. Well, actually, we did that again a few years later, but it was the first year that we won a state title without having an individual champion. We did have 3 in the finals. We placed 7 kids at state, and these kids were never really challenged. It was also the first time that we went to national level tournaments. This team was ranked 31st in the nation at the end of the year. The previous year, 99, they ended up being ranked 13th in the nation. So these were the first 2 teams that were nationally ranked at Highland Park. In 2000-2001, we had a tough year. We graduated a lot of kids who had been starters for 3 or 4 years from the 2 previous teams. We had a little bit of a drop-off. We ended up taking 4th in the state duels, which for most programs would be pretty phenomenal, but for this one it was quite a letdown. And we only had 1 state placer that year, and that was one of our captains, and that was Michael Horn was the state placer that year. And Michael actually wrestled basically with 1 arm all year that year. He had a shoulder that continued to dislocate every time he wrestled. We'd have to pop that baby back in place with the injury timeouts, but he showed a lot of courage, great leader on that team. Other captains on that team were Chris Lakenberg and Jake Francis and Paul Rousey. Jake and Paul were juniors that year. Next year in 2001, we came back and kind of came back to prominence a little bit. We had 2 captains, Jake Francis and Paul Rousey. Jake had missed the previous year with injuries to his shoulder. Came back and placed 3rd in the state. Paul Rousey was also an all-state wrestler that particular season. This team took 2nd in the state in both duels and I think we won the state duels in 2001, and we took 2nd in the state tournament to Rockwall in the UIL tournament. So really had a great comeback from the previous year. 202-203, this team also came back and did a great job. Won the district tournament, won the regional tournaments, had Keegan Mueller, Brad Yates, and Chris Hopkins who were captains. And these guys helped lead the team to a pretty successful season. We were able to, in 2003, we won the UIL state championship and we won the state duels in 2003. So they were double state champions. In 2004, our captains were Matt Hobar and Keegan Mueller and Chip Forsyth. Matt, this particular year, was a junior. Was looking to get his 3rd state medal in a row and did so. These guys were UIL state champs and we were state dual runner-ups. I'm sorry, UIL state runner-ups and state dual runner-ups. We took 2nd in both state tournaments to Arlington Martin and lost a real close duel to them, and then lost to them in the UIL tournament. But another great season. And had a number of kids that did an outstanding job. In 204-205, This was kind of a special team for me because it was my youngest son's senior year. Our captains that year were Fred Rousey and Matt Hobart and John Marzuola and Theo Simon, and Fred and Matt and John were all state wrestlers that year. This was a team that really wasn't favored to win the state tournament, but we ended up winning the state UIL championship and the state dual championship and doubled up in 205. Last one, we haven't actually got this baby up all the way, but this is last year's team in 2006. Again, another great group of kids. Interesting thing about this team was we were again going for our 10th district championship in a row. We were slightly favored over Coppell, and we ended up losing to Coppell by 2 points in the district tournament, and so we still can't figure out a way to win 10 district championships in a row. However, I will trade taking second in districts for winning state, and this team won both the state dual championship and the state UIL championship, and the only team to do that is Highland Park to win state duals back-to-back and state UIL championships back-to-back. So in 05 and 06, these two teams together set a standard that no team in the state has reached. Our captains that year were Drew Newman, David Baker, Fred Rousey, and AJ Forsyth. David was an all-state wrestler. Fred won his second state title that year, was a two-time state champion. AJ was a state finalist, along with Chase Gallatin, who also was a state runner-up on this team. And that kind of does it up to this season, and we're hoping that the 06-07 version of these previous 24 teams is going to be able to live up to the expectations and the standards that all of these other guys that have come along before them have set for them.
And what are you expecting to do this year?
Well, you expect to do as well as you can. I mean, we never really set a goal necessarily of winning the state championships. That's something we want to do, but we feel like if we work hard and if we make the right commitments and sacrifices and reach our potential, that all that other stuff will take care of itself. So we want to be as good as we can be, and we feel like if we can reach our potential, then we certainly can challenge for a state title with the duals and with the UIL tournament.
Thank you.
You bet.
Take this stick and put it right there.